Welcome to episode 19 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football and make the replacement refs look like pros. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Well, one, not doing well, which we'll get to. We know about that. Two, I don't know if we would make the replacement refs look like pros. I think we would have been pros compared to the real refs this weekend.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. As you can already tell, today's going to be a salty segment about officiating, but we'll try to delay that as long as possible before before we get too negative. So we're live right here on YouTube each and every week during the postseason at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. We have two more episodes. Isn't that crazy? This season has flown by.
As
So if you're tired of the punditry or just want a fresh voice, come listen to a couple random dudes talk about football and have a good time. This week we've got a recap of the championship games. Lots of awesome discussions as always. We're going to take a look at the Pro Bowl selections, see which ones were good, what guys got snubbed. And then, as always, we're going to round out our show with our prediction record. And we have a note on the Super Bowl, so stay tuned for that. All right, so segment one, we're going to talk about the Pro Bowl selections for this year. And the Pro Bowl is next week in Florida, I think. Orlando?
not sure.
And yeah, I believe it's in Orlando, Florida. And the selections this year, I thought generally speaking were pretty fair. But I'm just going to go through, not spend a whole ton of time on this, just go through and just announce who made it by position for each conference. So we'll start with the AFC Pro Bowl roster, and this is the guys that got starting nods. And some of these were selected but have chosen not to participate. But what matters is the fact that they were selected. So for offense, AFC offense, there were three quarterbacks: Patrick Mahomes, Phillip Rivers, and Tom Brady. So I think pretty clearly okay with Mahomes and Rivers, and we both felt like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we both felt like Andrew Luck got snubbed by Tom Brady on this one.
Big time.
Yeah.
Absolutely major. Yeah.
But you're okay with Rivers, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So then there were five wide receivers: DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, Antonio Brown, Keenan Allen, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think most of that's okay.
You said Tyreek Hill, right?
Tyreek Hill, yeah.
Then yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Then offensive tackles, Taylor Lewan from the Titans, Alejandro Villanueva from the Steelers, and then Eric Fisher from the Chiefs. I don't know enough to say on that one. Guards, David DeCastro, Marshall Yanda, Quentin Nelson, and then center, Marquise Pouncey for the Steelers and Mike Pouncey for the Chargers. Tight ends, Travis Kelce, and Eric Ebron from the Colts. And then running backs, James Conner, Steelers. Good for him after the whole Le'Veon Bell situation. Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay from the Broncos, and then fullback Anthony Sherman from the Chiefs. Then real quick on defense, we've got three defensive ends: J.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, and Melvin Ingram. I think that's fine. Tackles, Geno Atkins, Jarrell Casey from the Titans, Cameron Hayward from the Steelers, and Kyle Williams from Buffalo Bills. Not the 2011 49ers championship game Kyle Williams. This is a different Kyle Williams. Outside linebacker, Von Miller, Jadeveon Clowney, and Dee Ford. That's fine. Inside linebacker, C.J. Mosley, Benardrick McKinney. And then corners, Xavier Howard. Clap, clap, clap. Big fan of him. He made the Dolphins watchable this year. Jalen Ramsey, Stephen Gilmore, and Denzel Ward. I'm actually surprised to see a Patriots corner in there. Stephen Gilmore?
Yeah, and I'm also surprised not TJ. Is it TJ? I was getting, because there's three different Watts. The
TJ Watt is
Steelers.
is on the line. He's a lineman, isn't he? Or
Yeah,
a linebacker, maybe?
well, because they played in the 3-4, I think, in Pittsburgh. So, but I'm surprised he didn't make it. I
As
think
a
he had
corner? Oh,
no.
you're talking about, you're going back to the inside.
Linebackers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought Watt might make it, but it's not like a major snub because there's good play this year. So
yeah. So two free safeties, Derwin James from the Chargers and Eric Weddle from the Ravens, and then strong safety Jamal Adams from the Jets. Special teams, Jason Myers, the kicker, and Brett Kern, the punter, return specialist, Andre Roberts. Okay, so NFC Pro Bowl roster, offense, 3 quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Jared Goff, fine, and Aaron Rodgers. I would have put Matt Ryan in there.
yeah, Matt Ryan should have been in there.
Wide receivers, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen, Devonta Adams, and Mike Evans. I feel like we're missing... Did Devonta Adams really have that great of a year? I feel like there was someone else that should have been up there.
I feel like Cooks probably could have given one of those guys a run for the money.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. And maybe someone else. I'm it's at the tip of my tongue, but tackles, Tyron Smith, Taron Armstead, and Trent Williams. Guards, Zach Martin, Brandon Brooks, and Trey Turner. Center, Alex Mack, Max Unger. Tight end, Zach Ertz, and George Kittle, our friend. Running back, Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and fullback Kyle Juszczyk, also from the Niners. So, running back...
Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Especially McCaffrey.
I think... Do you feel like they should have been on there instead of Elliott?
No, so that's the thing.
Or is it just so... It was so loaded that...
Yeah, I'm not really upset. Initially I was more upset than I was when I realized that there's a fixed amount, I think, per conference. So it just happened to be that the NFC at running back was incredibly loaded this year. I think McCaffrey probably could have beat out. It was Elliott, Gurley, and who was the other one? Barkley.
Yeah.
So the thing was, McCaffrey, I think, finished first or second in yards from scrimmage. I think only Elliott might have beaten him. But then he had less rushing yards. So it's like, Gurley was better there, but honestly, they were all so close. They all played so well. I don't think it's really a snub because those 4 players were pretty much identical in terms of, I think, of their value. And you can't just have 4 running backs on the same conference. So
right, and it's not a snub in the sense of like Brady over Luck or anything like that.
Yeah, well, like
it's very competitive, and if one edges out the other, there's going to be an argument for the other person. So
exactly, yeah. So I think the only way to fix this issue for the future is to really just combine conferences. They don't have to necessarily do because they're already doing like a draft style anyways, aren't they? They pick like captains, like celebrity captains or team captains. And do
I think they have the celebrity captains, but I mean they can't really combine conferences because it's 2 conferences playing each other, right? So
but instead of conferences like they've done before, where it's like teams. I think it's like
Oh, where they have a larger pool of a position, and then they just draft out of that position.
Yeah. I think a few years ago it was like Deion Sanders was one team leader and Michael Irvin was the other team leader. And they just drafted out of a pool of players. So I think they're doing that also for the NBA All-Star game this year. I'm not sure. So if they did that again, that could help out because then if you did that, you'd probably honestly only have 1 or 2 AFC running backs and probably 6 NFC running backs. And that's fine. If that's the way it works out, then that's fine.
Yeah, true. So I'm looking up, so I'm going to read off the defensive players. So defensive end, Cameron Jordan, Saints, DeMarcus Lawrence, Cowboys, Danielle Hunter, Vikings.
Really quick, sorry, I want to go back. a major snub was Leonard. I think it's Darius Leonard for the Colts. He led the league in tackles. He was a rookie linebacker, and he
Oh
did
yeah,
not
he
get
was a
in.
monster this year. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
he
big
did not
snub.
get in. He
Yeah,
did not get in.
from the AFC. Yeah. Um, yeah, a little surprised not to see Chandler Jones on here instead of Cameron Jordan. I'm not really sure what the reasoning was behind that. He had more sacks and was a more dominant player this year, so that was odd. Um, so to tackles Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, and Akeem Hicks. DeForest Buckner did not make it, but it looks like he's going to play because Aaron Donald is not playing and Fletcher Cox is also not playing. So he has a good chance to play. He was the alternate. Outside linebacker, Khalil Mack, Ryan Kerrigan, Anthony Barr, and Oliver Vernon. Inside linebacker, Luke Kuechly and Bobby Wagner. Those are fine. And then corners, Kyle Fuller, Bears, Patrick Peterson, Cardinals, Darius Slay, Lions, and Byron Jones, Cowboys. That's Byron Jones, really? Wow. Okay. Free safety, Eddie Jackson, Bears, Harrison Smith, Vikings, and then strong safety was Landon Collins from the Giants. Kicker, Aldrick Rosas, Giants, Michael Dixon is the punter from the Seahawks, and then return specialist is Tariq Cohen from the Bears. That's good. And then special teamer Corey Littleton, Los Angeles Rams. Cool. So that's our lineup. Now, obviously, as is always the case, a bunch of these guys won't play, and especially if they're in the Super Bowl the week after, they're not going to play. So there will be plenty of alternates on there, and probably several of the guys that we mentioned that got snubbed were probably alternates that will actually get to play. Doesn't completely, make everybody feel better that they weren't starting, but that's the way that it is. The way that the voting works for this is odd, and I don't like the system, but that's a conversation for another day. So our next segment is championship weekend. We're going to talk about both of the championship games, but before we do that, I have a couple of things I want to talk about, because I forgot to talk about. I forgot to bring up the pattern I noticed in the divisional games last weekend. And Joseph has been on the edge of his seat all week trying to figure out what it was.
Oh, please.
And he texted me a couple of mornings saying, I was up till 3 a.m. trying to figure this out, and I just couldn't do it. So first of all, the pattern from last week was that every losing team got blown out in rushing yards. And so, yes, Joseph, you actually did guess this because we talked on the phone and you said, I think it's this one thing. And then I said, well, do you want me to tell you? And you said no. So that was that one thing. So the average net differential for the winning team in rushing yards was about 100 yards, which is incredible. I mean, right. So for all those people that say it's a passing league, they can beat this with a stick, because this is 100 yards is a lot. So, and then adding on to that from this last weekend, all 6 of the winners have led in rushing yards. So in all 4 divisional games and both championship games, the winning team led in rushing yards. So I thought that was interesting. So our overview of yesterday is, first of all, both road teams won. And secondly, history was made. The first ever championship weekend where both games went to overtime. Crazy. So first game was Rams at Saints. Final score 26-23 Rams. Joseph, I know we were both disappointed by both these games, and we'll get into that, but what were your kind of overarching thoughts about this game?
Wow, I mean, both games were just super exciting. I mean, it's hard to, outside of the controversies, it flowed really well, and the game was just really exciting. Goff had great presence and stayed calm. One thing I can really kind of praise him on is that I haven't seen him like panic, and he's like this year at all. He's played well and hasn't you know under pressure. He's basically looks like a young Tom Brady, which is interesting because they're playing each other. So it's even though I wanted the Saints to win, and it was heartbreaking to see them lose, and especially how they lost. You know, coming back being down 13-0, and which is funny because they did that earlier in the year when they were down to the Saints, and they came back and made it a game in the fourth quarter. So twice in the Superdome, making a comeback against the Saints. So, and then as for Drew Brees, I thought he was a little conservative. He ended up having still a decent game, but they didn't go for as many big plays, and there wasn't as many of those like dump passes, like the screens to Kamara and Ingram that I thought they could use. Like they seemed to have more conservative play calling than usual, and they did not. One thing I'll end here: they did not use Taysom Hill enough.
I agree with that.
I wish they should have used him aggressively and creatively, and that was a key thing. So
yeah, they had him in there for a handful of plays, but yeah, you and I have both been saying for weeks now that is the key to the Saints going the distance is going to be him, and whatever trick plays or creative plays they're able to make with him involved. And he was not used enough. I also felt like they kind of took Michael Thomas out of the game pretty effectively. I think he only had like 30 yards or something on maybe 4 catches, so he was pretty ineffective for them. So yeah, I thought that for the first half, the outside passes to Kamara actually were working. The Rams were getting burned a lot by those, but then the second half they bottled it up, and I felt like the Saints just didn't. It was almost like they pulled a Peyton Manning with the Broncos. Like they just sort of got too conservative and did not go for those big plays like you mentioned towards the end of the game. And I ultimately feel like this game they were robbed from this game, but not because of that. We'll get into the officiating issues in a moment, but I thought it was interesting that Todd Gurley was basically not in the game. He had 4 carries for 10 yards. He did have a touchdown, but he was on the sideline a lot. I think there must have been some kind of injury issue. Did you happen to see any updates on that today? If there was an injury problem or what was going on with him?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay. He didn't seem upset on the sideline or anything, so I don't think they were just pulling him off for performance. There must have been something going on. So it is a little crazy to think like the Rams won that game and Gurley barely played.
Yeah.
So we'll see what kind of effect he has on the Patriots D line. I don't know. I honestly thought the Saints game plan minus the Taysom Hill issue was pretty good. Like they were a little bit too conservative at times, but
second half especially.
Yeah. I thought, the crowd noise definitely got to Goff a few times, running out to receivers to call plays and stuff. And I felt like the offense was moving the ball. They just weren't moving it as effectively as I think they should have been able to, especially with that kind of home field advantage. It ultimately, for me, it really came down to 2 huge missed PI calls. One was on a 3rd and 7 at the start of the fourth quarter. And the other one was in the red zone with 1:45 left, also a 3rd down play. And both should have been against the Rams. The first one was like, it was bad, but it wasn't, nobody should get fired over it bad. But
well, hold on. Let me get so maybe he shouldn't get fired.
Yeah, nobody should get fired over the first one.
But he should be fined and suspended because, and I'm not trying to be facetious.
And by he, we're not talking about the player. We're talking about the official.
Yeah, the official, because when you rewatch the play, the official is like 10 yards or less away, and he's looking at the play, and there's nothing in his line of sight. He had the entire time he had a clear line of sight to the play, and he was close, and just called no penalty. So he should be fined and suspended. And then let's move on. We'll get to the next guy.
Yeah. So this next one was the most controversial, probably the most controversial play of the weekend. There was a second play in the other game that we'll talk about, but so this was the most blatant PI no call I've ever seen in a football game, and is deserving of a immediate firing of the official that should have thrown the flag in that situation. This was it was it Corey Littleton?
I can't remember.
I have his name written down somewhere. Corey Littleton or somebody that got away with one, to say the least. Oh, Robbie Coleman. Sorry, Robbie Coleman from the Rams. Literally smashed into the receiver a full, what was it? A full couple of seconds, second and a half before there was ball contact. I mean, it was so long. It was like a year of time in terms of what your eyes need to be able to see that the ball was not there yet.
The refs, you have I'm forgetting his name. Who's the guy at the New York specialist that gets on? What's his name?
Oh, Gene Steratore.
But the other one, the other guy, the other one.
Well, there's Mike Pereira.
Mike Pereira. So, how many times do we hear them, Gene and Pereira, talk about the refs are looking for clear and obvious? Granted, they didn't review this play, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I don't think I've ever seen a more clear and obvious penalty, and it wasn't called. I mean, it was that bad. It was just, it was shocking that they didn't call it. You almost were stunned. You couldn't yell at your TV because you're just like, wait, what just happened? Am I in the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, it was amazing. It's like, and this harkens back to the conversation we've had so many times, which is that these types of plays have to be reviewable. Like, they have to be challengeable, right? Because obviously a official is not necessarily going to call for an automatic review of something that wasn't called, but it should be challengeable. And right now it's not.
And the ref like I said, the ref nearby, any ref that was nearby should be fired, and there needs to be a serious discussion about reviewing calls. Now, I did see an article today that the NFL they're going to be having that meeting this offseason about what plays can be reviewable and all that, and dig into that. I really hope they make an effort and they do something creative but yet viable, because this can't happen. Like, that really is unacceptable. And the NFL just admitting afterwards to Saints fans, what's it supposed to do? Yeah, we were wrong. Okay, now what? You can't protest the game, which I think you should be able to.
Yeah, why are we not allowed to establish that they're wrong during the game? Why are we always establishing that they're wrong after the game? That's not okay. Yeah,
do something about it. I mean, just saying you're sorry, you got it wrong, that's not being accountable. That's not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just think that I get refereeing is a tough job, but there has to be accountability, and there has to be more tools in the referee's toolkit to be able to make the kind of calls that they need to make. And okay, look. If we had the right system where whatever the ref was on that was on that sideline that saw that call and didn't call it, if he doesn't call it and there's a challengeable play and they find out that the ref is wrong, and then they say after the game the ref is fined some amount, suspended a couple of games, I would be okay with that, because that means that the system is protecting the team from those kinds of mistakes. And I don't think necessarily that a ref needs to be fired in the event that a team is protected from an error. But when a team is not protected from an error, that's when you have to make sure that someone that cannot see a call like that is not officiating anymore. That's my personal opinion on this. But we need to see a lot more change before we're even at the point where we can be arguing, but splitting hairs between suspensions and firing. I mean, we're a ways from that. So that was the biggest thing about that game, and I honestly think if that call had come in, the Saints would have won that game.
Oh, definitely. They were like what, the 12-yard line?
Yeah, they would have won that game. We all know it deep down. They would have won. So I'm sorry, Saints. I saw some Twitter talk and articles today about how this is the most like devastating. The back-to-back losses that the Saints have had the last 2 years are the most devastating in postseason history. And then all the Niners fans just jumped out of the woodwork and were like, "Excuse us, but we lost 3 straight, a championship game, a Super Bowl, and then another championship game on the most devastating plays." Not necessarily bad officiating, but just the most devastating situation. So I'm sorry.
No, I know. I think the Saints had it worse, man. I think the Saints
not for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, the Niners were robbed out of the Super Bowl.
And that was because of the
there was a miss. There was a no call on a PI in the Super Bowl
with Sherman and Randy Moss.
No. It was with. No. Are you talking about
the last play?
Are you talking about the championship game, the Sherman Crabtree play?
No, never mind. Sorry, obviously not Sherman. He was on the Ravens. No, I thought it was the last play of the game.
It was the last play of the game.
Wasn't that to Moss?
I don't remember who it was to.
Oh, okay.
But it was regardless.
That was a bad call.
Yeah,
that was a bad call.
So anyway, regardless, I think the Saints got gypped from this one. And I don't have any love lost for the Saints, to be honest, but I feel bad for Breeze because I wanted to see Breeze in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl this year. I would have loved to see that. So I just don't know how many more chances that guy's going to get. He's getting older. So, all right, from one depressing game to the next. So Patriots at Chiefs. Final score, Patriots over Chiefs, 37-31. I have news, official news that a slap is now officially, in the rule book, it is now officially roughing the passer.
A love tap to the chest.
Yeah, love tap to the chest is now officially, that's the actual wording. Love tap to the chest is now considered roughing the passer.
Punch in the face.
The most horrendous roughing the passer call that I've ever seen in football. And I can't believe I'm saying that twice tonight. The worst PI and the worst roughing the passer call / no call that I've ever seen in football. And I'm not exaggerating. It's true. That was the worst roughing the passer call I've ever seen in my life. So we'll talk about that in a second. But gosh, is there a more emotionless coach than Andy Reid? He is just our friend the Walrus. Well, you can see, I feel like you can see Belichick on his, like, he doesn't have the greatest poker face. He has a good poker face, but he broke did you see him break the Surface Pro?
So I missed that. So other than that blow up, he does keep it, he stay composed.
He is, I agree. And there are some other coaches that stay composed, but Andy Reid is so stoic with that mustache, and just, he is the most stoic walrus that you'll ever see. He's going to lead them to a Super Bowl someday, though. And
I hope so.
I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to be so happy for him. And he's not going to be happy. He'll be standing there.
They'll be like, I should have won this 10 years ago, so I could have retired already.
Yeah, he's just, I'd love to see him in the room with the players, like for team meetings and stuff, because I can't see the chemistry there. But he's obviously a wonderful coach. So, that game, the starting temperature was 19 degrees Fahrenheit.
Just a breeze, man.
I know. The polar ice caps farted onto the football field, and it left guys freezing. There was no snow, though. There was no snow, which there were some forecasts that said there was going to be some snow. So, cold games that are not wet are fun to watch. So, I don't know. The environment for this game was actually really fun. Outside of that roughing the passer call, I don't think I had any other real issues with the officiating.
I'm trying to think. I don't.
At least not nothing that blatant. There might have been
Yeah.
some minor things, but that was really the main thing.
So I want to say this. Let's. It was. I think it was the punt with like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Where Edelman, it
Oh,
looked
the
like
one
he
to
touched
Edelman.
it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to say this. Despite you can imagine how little we like the Patriots, especially me, and how not excited we are that they're in the Super Bowl. But I will commend the refs for making the right call on the Edelman play. So I actually, give people context here, I did was looking at the score on ESPN, but I did not start watching the game. I went back and watched it today, but I didn't start watching the game live until literally at that play. Like I turn on the game and I see Edelman in slow motion getting the punt. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So it took several plays, but I love how they deduced that he didn't touch it. And I wish that they would use that same logic and procedure in other plays. They what they did is they went from multiple angles, and in some angles it looked like that it hit his right thumb. But then from other angles it was clear and obvious that it did not hit his right thumb. So they deduced that it was obviously just either an illusion or it's just perspective was throwing them off, and it did not hit his right thumb. And then they did the same thing with his left thumb, and they realized that it didn't hit that either. And then the fact that the trajectory of the ball didn't really change, and from that they put it all together and said there's enough here to overturn the call. Remember, the call on the field was he touched it, and then it was a Kansas City recovery.
Yeah, they overturned it. That's the key.
Yeah, so they overturned it through those processes of deduction. Was really impressed with them. And I started to slightly feel better. Even though it was in favor for the Patriots, I actually started to feel better about the ref situation as a whole from watching the Saints disaster. And then, like a very soon play after that, there was a catch that looked like it wasn't a catch because it kind of fell out of his arms and it may have hit the ground, but he never lost possession. And again, the refs were diligent, took their time, called it a catch, and it was a catch. Then, towards the last minute of the game, to Hogan, I believe again, it looked like he caught the ball initially.
It was to Hogan both times.
Yeah. They called it a reception, reviewed it, and the ball did come out, touch the ground, and he did lose possession. And they made the right call and overturned it to an incomplete pass. So, yes, the roughing the passer call was atrocious, and it, I think, screwed up the game because wasn't that in the fourth quarter? Wasn't that like 6 minutes left?
I think so.
And Andy Reid didn't have the best time management, so who knows what happened. But I think that roughing the passer call did affect the outcome of the game. But other than that, those are the three plays that we talked about. Even though they were in favor of the Patriots, they were the right calls, and the refs did a good job of getting it right.
Yeah, I really commend them for that, and especially in a high pressure situation like that, to make the right call 3 times in a row is good. And of course, I mean, that's their job, right? So I don't expect anything less, but that it was cool to see them not mess up more than that, because honestly, every year we see there's certain screw ups, and it was good to see more consistency. I felt like this year outside of the one roughing the passer call. So that was good. I mean, my other comments for this game were just, I mean, generally speaking, Kansas City's run D was terrible, and that's been their Achilles heel all season. And it was bad tonight. It was really bad. There were just gaping holes that led to a couple of different touchdowns. And then, why was Eric Berry guarding Gronk?
I know.
I didn't get that scheme. It's just like what it's like being guarded by your grandma. I mean, it's like I don't like Eric Berry is a good foot shorter than Gronk.
Close. I think Berry is 5'9", 5'10", and Gronk is 6'6".
Yeah, I mean, Eric Berry is a very talented corner. I'm not taking anything away from him, but he just couldn't do it. He couldn't guard Gronk. And the crazy thing is that Gronk has one leg. He has one leg and one arm and like half of his rib cage at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he has just.
And
it was
he didn't
a very
even jump.
odd. Yeah, he didn't have
the ball.
He
just
like
dropped into his arms.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it was just a beautiful throw by Brady. Obviously, they practiced that little drop, little fade dump pass. But again, Barry, must have tried out for the 49ers this offseason because then they taught him to not put his arms up or to not defend the
Not
ball.
look for the ball.
Exactly. And again, yeah, what is he doing? Why did they have that man-to-man scheme? It was 3rd and 10. I'm pretty sure that was 3rd and 10. Or no, I'm sorry, that was before. There was a play before where it was 3rd and 10 on Gronk, and he got away with it as well. That was not 3rd and 10. But still, that was a big play, and what are you doing?
Yeah, that was odd. Now, granted, I don't know who would have been a better choice. That's the thing. They may have not had a great option for someone else to guard him.
So, I was going to say,
I think their secondary is pretty depleted, other than Barry. So I don't know if they really had another guy.
Yeah, that's true. So before we kind of close out here, I want to add that 2 things. One, to those listening right now, did you guys know that in games in which Brady was up 14 or more points going into halftime, he was set this regular season or postseason 72-1.
And now he's 73-1.
73-1. I don't want to hear anyone say that the Patriots haven't had good defenses. Like, you have to have like that, or Brady just keeps going. It's probably both, because that's crazy. And a little trivia here: that one game, that loss, 2006 AFC Championship, losing at the Colts, in which the Colts went on to win the Super Bowl that year. But other than that, 73 wins. I mean, Tom Brady has 205 career wins anyways. So think about that. Like a third of his wins, they're up by 14 or more going into halftime, and then they keep it. Like, that's just amazing. And then secondly, how scary and hot do the Patriots look right now? They lose Josh Gordon, right? Josh Gordon was a big piece for them. He was having chemistry, and then he's gone. They have a rookie running back who's playing great, and I think he tied the record, or he's a rookie record for most touchdowns in the postseason by a rookie running back. They still have the Super Bowl left. They have a rush defense now. They have a pass defense. They sacked Mahomes 4 times. They still have an offensive line. Brady didn't get sacked. He had great pocket presence. Brady's arm was rejuvenated. I mean, he wasn't consistent, but when he needs to, he has a cannon. He can't do it consistently. He's too old and can't do that all the time. But most important throw of the game was when they were at the 50-ish yard line going down at the overtime, and he throws a bullet to Edelman. I mean, there were 2 guys guarding Edelman. Edelman was just a hair ahead of them, and he throws a bullet. Edelman just has to barely jump. Perfect throw, cannon. Don't like the guy, but he's amazing. Timmy Slim Jim really, really stepped up, played well, and he's going to his 9th Super Bowl. 9.
I accredit it to the pistachio snacks.
Pistachio ice cream.
Yeah. So yeah, bottom line, the 2 biggest takeaways for me were horrendous calls and really exciting. Those are my 2 feelings. I was disappointed because I wanted to see Saints Chiefs or Saints Patriots, but I didn't get that, and I think next week will be a good game. I think I lean a little bit towards the Patriots, but we're not making our picks till next week. So
sorry, would you say you lean towards the Patriots?
I'm leaning towards the Patriots.
Okay.
At this point. But and if you guys leave comments on the YouTube video, you're free to try to change my mind. I'm being open-minded about it, but I think the Patriots are coming in so hot, and I just the Rams, I feel like they looked okay, but they're not. I don't know. They just don't seem like a Super Bowl ready team yet, and the Patriots have been there. And the crazy thing, so I saw this stat before we move on. Speaking of they've been there, the Patriots on their current roster, on their current 53-man roster, have 36 players who have played in the AFC Championship game. Kansas City had 0. I don't know how many the Rams have, but the Patriots are just oozing with experience, and we know that Belichick is going to have a great game plan. So I don't know. I think it's going to be another. It could be another Patriots Super Bowl. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We have to wait 2 weeks. So our we're gonna do a commentator say the darndest things. There were a couple this week. So the first one, referee comes on the field, says the game clock is correct. Tony Romo. Oh, thanks. The next one from also Tony Romo, who, by the way, is a great analyst. He's really good at predicting plays that happen and talking about. Sometimes he gets a little overexcited at mundane things, but he's a really good analyst. He said during the Patriots-Chiefs game, Gronk is the most selfless player this year.
I remember that.
Just that's a mic drop. I'm leaving it there. So our final segment, our normal predictions segment, we're just going to review our records going into the Super Bowl weekend. So both Joseph and I were 0-2 this week. So I ended up pre-Super Bowl, I am 5-5, and Joseph is 4-6. So Joseph, you can't be 500 this offseason, which is, how do you feel about that?
I don't feel good, and I feel even worse that of the 4 possible Super Bowl combinations, we got the worst one, and now I'm forced to root for the Rams.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you and I picked for, like, who we think is gonna win, you know, we're basically forced to root for the Rams, unless Tom Brady. Are you listening? Give me Slim Jim. Listen up, brother. If you call in and promise to retire after the Super Bowl, if you win, we will root for you. But other than that, other than Brady promising to retire if he wins, I'm rooting for the Rams.
Yeah, I haven't decided who I'm rooting for yet. I might be leaning towards Patriots, but that's just because if he doesn't retire, I'm not going to be as devastated as Joseph would be rooting for the Patriots and then finding out that Tom Brady doesn't retire.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but we can both agree the other day, he would be foolish for many reasons to not retire if he wins.
I agree. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So next week, we will do our official Super Bowl predictions. But just to take the temperature, like I said, I'm leaning towards Patriots after yesterday's games. And then next week, we also have a surprise segment for you all. We're not... the Pro Bowl game is awful. I'm just going to come right out and say it. The Pro Bowl game's awful. I won't be watching it. So we're not going to be reviewing any games next week. But we have some special topics to have fun with you guys. So make sure you come ready to post in the comments your thoughts on what we talk about. Similar to some segments we've done this past during the regular season, but we'll reveal next week. So, Joseph, unless you have anything else, are you good? Are you ready to spend the next 2 weeks just fantasizing about the Rams winning the Super Bowl? I mean,
that's the thing is, it's not like I'm really rooting for them. I'm forced into a corner. Right, I'm forced to root for them because I don't want another team to win.
Okay, and even so then, Joseph will spend the next 2 weeks with a blanket over his head in his bedroom. He won't go to work. Work will be trying to call him. They won't be able to reach him. Family won't be able to reach him. He'll be in a corner, in a blackout, just fearful and afraid and not wanting to talk to anybody about the fact that he has to watch the Super Bowl and 2 teams that he doesn't want to win. He doesn't even want to be there are going to be playing in 2 weeks.
That sounds about right.
All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. We're a little bit shorter this week. That's okay. We covered all the essentials. The 2 great games this week. Really happy we watched them. Another great year of football. 1 more game left. That's a wrap for this episode. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to all or any of them right here on my YouTube channel. I typically upload on Tuesday evenings, the day after we go live. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Retire, Tom. Retire.